Good evening. I will call the July 13th regular scheduled board meeting to start. And I want to first acknowledge that we have our new superintendent here, Dr. Grenita Lathan. So we welcome her this evening. Let's give her a round of applause. I also want to acknowledge that we have Dr. John Mulford, our new deputy superintendent, here tonight. We also have Miss Tammy Harrington, who is familiar with us but has just stepped into our official board secretary role tonight. So welcome. We're always growing at SPS, so we've got a great board meeting tonight. Let's get started with our first agenda item, which is our Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead tonight. If you're willing to join us, you can please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first agenda item is the recommended action is that the board approve the agenda as presented. Would somebody be willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Sharita, is there a second? Second. Charles, okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Motion passes. I realize that I failed to do our official roll call, so Tammy, please let the record show that we have 5 board members in attendance, and we have 2 board members that perhaps will be joining us later in the board meeting. Our next agenda item is public comments to address agenda items, and I will read our statement. The Board of Education welcomes comments from the audience about issues being discussed. It is recommended that requests to speak be submitted prior to the beginning of the meeting. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes for each speaker and be timed by the board secretary. It is inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. If you have materials that you would like to share, please provide them to the board secretary and she will distribute them to the board members. We have 1 public speaker for agenda item, and that is Mr. David Noakes. Good evening, David.
Good evening. We welcome the new superintendent of Springfield. We find out that Springfield's a good community, and Andy's custard is really good. The last board meeting minutes on June 22nd of this year, Kendall Qualls was a speaker and discussed his life experiences and dangers of critical race theory ideology. During the board discussion, one board member stated the community had been lied to about the presence of critical race theory and district-provided training. No private evidence that supports this board member's allegations that the district has lied to the community regarding the presence of critical race theory in the district's training. First exhibits that evidence will be labeled A, and that will show that the district denials of critical race theory in district training. The last exhibit of the evidence, the last exhibits will be labeled B, as in boy, and will show the components of critical race theory in district training. Exhibit A1. Springfield News Leader online article dated March 25th, 2021. Chief Communication Officer for the district said the diversity training provided to the staff and teachers was developed by the district and pulled from many sources that not critical race theory. Exhibit A2, Springfield News Leader online article dated May 19th this year. District officials have said repeatedly that the training was developed by Springfield educators and not based on critical race theory. Exhibit A3, Springfield News Leader online article dated June 29, 2021. Board member name redacted. Also took issue with drive-by comment from board member name redacted, and the board had been lied to about the presence of CRT and employee training, which the district has denied. Summary of Exhibits A. Springfield News Leader on 3 separate occasions documented official comments from Springfield School District representatives telling the community that Springfield Public School District does not use the components of critical race theory in district training. Exhibit B1, as in boy. On December 8, 2021, the District Department of Equity and Diversity presented a PowerPoint presentation to the board focusing on Focus Area 5, end-of-year report regarding district-wide equity training outcomes. Under Goal 1, Strategy 5.1.1, under bullet point, facing racism training objective included, but not limited to, is the following training objective: introduce the components of critical race theory. Exhibit B2, in December 8th, same presentation to the board, Focus Area 5 Equity Training Report. The presentation documented one of the topics covered was intersectionality. Intersectionality, that concept, is a component of critical race training. I'd like for people to pay attention, not be on their phone. Exhibit B3, on December 8th, Focus Area 5 Training Report, same presentation. The presentation documented the spring 2020 train, including learning topics that range from identity, intersectionality, and white privilege. All topics are components of critical race theory. Exhibit B4, the oppression matrix. It's a component of critical race theory. It was used in the district training. Exhibit B5, the white supremacy chart, a topic of critical race theory. It was also used in the district-wide training. Summary of Exhibits B, critical race theory is present in district trainings that occurred in 2019 and 2020. If lying was a criminal offense, now I was a police officer right now, could arrest district officials on probable cause lying to the community about the presence of critical race training. Period. However, the jury's not out on that. I wouldn't say that they would get convicted, but the jury will be in April of 2022 next year. We'll have 2 positions on the board open for re-election, and that's when I guess the community will decide whether or not the district is guilty of lying to the, if the allegation is true, that the district did lie about the presence of critical race theory components in the district-wide training. And thank you for the time.
David, thank you for your comments. I'm just curious, I'm not sure what exhibits you're referring to, if there is something we're supposed to be...
Is there an interaction between both of us now? I mean, can I make a comment back and forth?
Yes, I'm asking you a question. And then I'm also...
I just use that term as exhibits.
Okay.
I mean, it was in, if you'll just look, it wouldn't take...
It's okay. I just didn't know if you had handouts for us.
I do. I can give you this. I can give you my present.
That's okay. That's okay. I just didn't know if we were missing something when you were using the term exhibits.
On December
and then
8th,
how does this relate to our agenda item tonight? How does this relate to our agenda item?
If the board discussion was on the meeting minutes, that was in the discussion items on the meeting minutes of June. Did you not discuss the Kendall Qualls presentation about critical race theory on June 22nd?
He was a public comment speaker, but okay. Thank you so
well,
much.
I apologize for the interruption.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Our next agenda item are our consent agendas. The recommended action is that the board approve consent agenda items 3.01 through 5.01. Would somebody be willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, Sharita will make the motion. Charles with a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we're ready to vote. Motion passes. Our next agenda item is our treasurer's report, and that brings up Dr. John Mulford to the podium. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Hello, board. I'm excited to be here at Springfield Public Schools. Thank you for putting your trust and confidence in me. I'm a little nervous. I'm not sure exactly why, but my heart is just really beating right now. So, all right, so in your board packet, you have the monthly financials. Of course, we're starting up a new fiscal year, so not a lot of action has occurred up to this point. So some of the normal reports that you might be accustomed to, we don't typically do in July, but there are a few items in there that I want to touch on. Of course, there is the 2019 bond financials. We continue to come in below projected costs, which should help us be able to complete more of the level 2 projects, so we're excited about that. There is the check register for the last half of June in there, along with other checks and wires for your review. Schedule of investments, which continues not to perform very well, but that's kind of a common theme these days. General budget summary, I do want to touch on that. Not a lot has changed since the last meeting, but you will notice that we are sticking with our estimated ending fund balance for the past fiscal year to be a little bit above 20%. That actually is probably conservative. We think we're going to come in a tad higher, but we're kind of wrapping things up. So that's exciting news. And then finally, there's a surplus report in there of items that the district no longer uses. So with that said, I'll field any questions and I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
On our surplus report, it's always been our past to put those on gov deals. Are we still doing that, and that's going forward?
So that is my understanding. Travis, or yes, Travis can confirm that.
Because it is an excellent opportunity for those districts that might be able to use these items, it's like a recycling process, so just
Absolutely.
double checking on that.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, thank you, Dr.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, the recommended action is that the board approves the treasurer's report as presented. Is somebody willing to make that motion?
I will.
Denise will make the motion.
Second.
Charles will second it. Any discussion? Seeing none, we are ready to vote. Motion passes. Our next agenda item is information reports, which there are none tonight. That leads us to board policy, and there are also no policies for review tonight. That takes us to our agenda item under new business, which is health and counseling services. And that brings to the podium Dr. Brett Range and I believe Jean Grable.
She is on her way. I bet
She's on her way. Okay.
Tammy, did we have the presentation pulled up? You know. It's there. Got it.
Good evening, Dr. Range.
Good evening, Dr. Weiner, Dr. Lathan,
Yes.
and members of the board. I'm going to take my mask off.
Yes, that's great.
As Dr. Mulford said, I'm a little nervous too, so it's hard to take the mask when you're nervous. So I'm Brett Range. I'm Executive Director of Student and School Services, and I'm going to be presenting this evening with Jean Grable, who is our Director of Counseling Services. Dr. Allison Roffers, who's the new Director of Counseling Services, couldn't be here this evening because she is at a conference, but I will present her slides, and I'm sure she's watching even as we do.
Right.
So we are excited to bring to you the health services and counseling services proposals for ESSER funds. And so this is kind of, we're building on Dr. Methvin and Dr. Wynn's presentation last month, or last board meeting, when they came and talked about the expansion of before and after school care services. So this is piggybacking with that and really focusing on the health and well-being of our kids' mental health supports. They're all some of these slides are going to be very similar to what we presented, or what Dr. Methvin and Dr. Wynn presented back in last board meeting. So this slide here just kind of sets the overview. So we know that COVID-related school closures and limited seat time impacted academics, but it also impacted kids' mental health and their just health in general. And so the main idea of this presentation is that we work with community partners to leverage their expertise in coming up with some projects to support those kids moving forward. So school closures, that's the exact, Dr. Methvin had this in his presentation. So our K-8 kids missed 90 plus days of seated instruction, which is a whole lot. Obviously that impacts, again, I already said this, their academics, but not most importantly, but also importantly, it's their mental health and health due to extended quarantine, economic downturn, just the stress. And we know kids and families are going through stress during this time, and even the future is uncertain with what school will look like in the fall. So the goal of this, again, is to leverage our community partners' expertise, because we know they have expertise that we don't have in Springfield Public Schools. And so we tried to be strategic in coming up with proposals that impacted kids really at a personal level. So why is this important? So why health and mental health supports? Number one, and I think this is really important, all these proposals that you're going to see this evening align to our strategic plan. Focus Area 1, Goal 1, deals with the physical and emotional well-being of our kids. That directly ties to number 2. We know if kids don't feel safe, they can't learn. So it's kind of like that Maslow hierarchy of needs thing. They have to feel safe, and if they're going to do reading, writing, and math at a high level. And then the third one is, and I've kind of already touched on this, these partners bring expertise that we don't have. So they are going to fill in gaps that are just out of our capacity. And so we are excited to be bringing them to the table, and we know that this collaboration will be really rewarding going forward for our kids. You saw this slide. I stole this from Dr. Methvin too. So we bring these community partners together, and we dream big. We thought, think pie in the sky. What are your ideal proposals if we could get these funded? So this kind of puts the timeline together. We were a little bit behind that other group. So Dr. Methvin and Dr. Wynn started meeting, I think, in March. We started meeting in April with the partners. And at that first meeting, we divided up into 2 groups. So Jean took the health services group, Rhonda Mammon, who is no longer with us, she's the director of school counseling, and Allison, who's our new director, took the mental health group. And so by May, those teams had created some proposals of, here are our ideas. Here's what we're thinking. And they brought that to us. And we vetted those for scalability, those that impacted lots of kids as opposed to small projects, and those that would be easier to implement than others. So June, we asked them to kind of revise those proposals based on our feedback, and they did that. And now we are kind of at this July-August session. We have been waiting to stand, we've been excited to stand up in front of you to show you these, and then hopefully after this meeting, we have got the green light to go develop MOUs with them and to get the work moving forward. So here are our partners. Here are the ones that rose to the top. Cox Health, Ronald McDonald House Charities, which we have 2 folks here at Ronald McDonald House. Care to Learn is the little green hand. Community Partnership of the Ozarks is the image with the sun. We've got members of that crew here too, and then Burl Behavioral Health. So those were the ones that kind of rose to the level of, hey, we want to try these this year. So that being said, I'm going to turn the time over now to Jean. She's going to talk about the health services solutions, and then I'm going to come back and talk about the counseling services solutions. Here's Jean. You've been busy.
Yes. Good evening, Jean. Welcome.
Good evening, and it's great to be here to talk to you this evening. So I'm going to talk to you about what's going on with the health services section for provision of care. So we know that we want to bring services to the school site so that children have improved access to care, and we're going to do it in these 2 ways, with the Cox Health System providing mobile services for our students, and then also our continued partnership with Ronald McDonald House and the tube truck. And as he said, we've got members here. Bonnie Keller is the CEO of Ronald McDonald House, and also that incorporates the tube truck as well, and Mindy Munoz that directs that. And they've provided over $19 million worth of services for our kids in 19 years for 28,000 students. So we want to continue to provide that excellent care for our students there and improving oral health for our students. And then Care to Learn has been a long-standing partner with us as well, and they want to expand the clothing closets, which means that they've got clothing that's right there on site for emergency use for kids. And so right now they have 19, so we want to improve that by adding 10 more this year, so that'll be 29, and then another 10 the following year. And then we have some specific things with nutrition services to help provide specific points of sale for them, so kids have a chance to do second time around for breakfast, so if they're late to school, so in between first and second periods, they can grab and go and get a breakfast for them, as well as providing some additional equipment for the school nurses as well. Boy, we used a lot of equipment this past year, and we found that they're wearing out very quickly, so we need to purchase some additional ones. So that's it in a nutshell for health services.
So again, I'm covering for Dr. Roffers, who I hope is watching. He's at her counseling conference. So she would have taken these slides, but I'm going to cover them for her. So we have 3 proposals moving forward kind of on the mental health or counseling services side. The first one, all of these we're really excited about, but this first one we're really excited about. So partnering with Burl to set up a day treatment facility. So a program is what they call it. Burl has a program already running, I believe, in Northwest Arkansas, but it's affiliated with Burl. So our idea here is to put this into a school. And so it would provide really intense individual, group, and family therapy for our youngest learners, K through 2. There'd be about 20 kids in the class. This project, I need to say, is still in its infancy. So we were waiting for this presentation to occur, and then we need to get in the minutia of what this looks like. So how do kids get referred to it? What school is it going to be located in? We need to work with Dr. Anderson on that. So this still needs to be built out. This won't be up and running, obviously, by August. We still have quite a bit of work to do on this, but we're excited about the idea. Number 2, community partnership with the Ozarks social workers. This one's huge too. So adding 15 full-time social workers, which we already have some social workers in the district, but this will give us a whole bunch more. 3 per feeder pattern, and then also providing 2 other things. A full-time supervisor for those social workers so they get some administrative oversight and support. And then number 2, this kind of emergency direct service dollars. So that's things like if a social worker's out in the field and they see a family needs an alarm clock, or CU bus passes, or something happens in the house and they need to relocate to a motel. We have the funds there to be able to pay for those things. So we are really excited about this because we know those 15 of the social workers that are already working on this too, but these 15 will be boots on the ground to help our families in the neighborhoods or even in their homes with immediate needs. And the third one, the last one with the mental health side of things, is expanding conscious discipline. So if you remember, the last 2 years in September, that's when we report on Focus Area 1, Goal 1, the discipline metrics are in that report. And so the last 2 years, we have been doing conscious discipline in 8 schools, like Westport, Pipkin, Bissett. So that has been going on. Obviously, the pandemic caused some issues with it, but we've still been training. It's just sometimes we didn't have all the kids there and things like that. So the discipline metrics, it's hard to tie those to conscious discipline just simply because of COVID. But what we're proposing is that we expand this into 4 more schools, and it would be the 3 early childhood sites, so Campbell, Shady, and Fulbright, and then working with Dr. Woodard, identified Carver Middle School as a potential middle school site that would implement this too. So number 1, it's the expansion. Number 2, it is providing an instructional coach. So that person provides direct support to those 12 sites, meaning they support teachers in the classroom implementing conscious discipline, and they provide support to the principal as they plan professional learning as we build the capacity of everybody in those schools to adopt this conscious discipline mentality. So we're excited about this, growing it a little bit at a time. This slide is pretty self-explanatory. This is the 30,000-foot view level of these budget items. So the budget that was approved at the end of June gave us $3 million for mental health and counseling services supports. And so we came in at $2.9 million. We were a little bit under that when we worked with our partners on this project. So in sum, this is kind of the last slide and then we'll open up for questions. I can't say this enough. The partners standing in this room and that aren't standing in this room that we're working with provide expertise that we don't have. So we know we've got to leverage their expertise if we truly want to meet the mental health needs and the health needs of our kids. Number 2, we selected projects that have impact on lots of kids. I mean, when Jean talks about the mobile unit, I mean, how many kids that will impact, it will be awesome. And then number 3, again, these projects align directly with our strategic plan of meeting kids' physical and social, emotional well-being, because they've got to feel safe before they can learn. So, that is it. I will open it up for questions you might have of myself or Jean.
Okay.
And we'll do our best to answer them.
Okay, great. And I'm just clarifying to our board members that we, as a board, we've already approved this budget line.
yes.
The reason it's coming to us tonight is for the approval of the MOU with these particular, the expansion of the partnerships
Us getting
with these
started
groups.
developing
That's
MOUs
correct.
with these
Yep.
groups. Yes, ma'am.
Yep, so I'm just making that clarification. So are there any questions for Jean or for Brett tonight?
I just
Yeah,
have a
Denise.
comment. One thing on the conscious discipline, Brett, one thing that might be helpful for folks to remember or to understand or to know about conscious discipline. This has been something that's been, we've been looking at, or we've been training teachers for some time and actually started within our pre-K program, correct? And that came on the heels of a large grant.
What I remember is it's being funded out of Title IV.
Right.
Those 8 sites are Title IV money.
And prior to that was within our
I would have to
Okay.
check on that. I believe you're right.
from a
yes.
very large grant from a family within our community that
Okay.
felt so strongly about how effective that is with working with our children with social and emotional needs, that it then was expanded then into our district. Is anyone here that recalls that? Maybe, I dreamed that, but
Denise does have
You with me?
institutional knowledge, that's right, yes.
yeah, so it's nothing new, and it is something that is, if you went to the What Works Clearinghouse, you would find that it is a very well researched and it works great with
The
children.
anecdotal evidence that we've gotten from the schools that are using it, they've been, and this is perceptual, they're very positive. They feel like this gives me tools to be able to interact with kids in a positive manner, as opposed to being reactionary when discipline does happen sometimes. So it is just changing the mindset of if kids or kids from trauma, if they are acting out, how do I be the adult and respond appropriately?
Knowing one person who's gone through the training reasonably well, I think it's a really good description of what it's about. And what's interesting is that it is an adult-led sort of approach to discipline, giving better resources for teachers and those in the moment to deal with students who may be in crisis.
And if you remember in our board reports, we talk about PBIS and conscious discipline. This PBIS piece is just setting the structure up of what do hallway behaviors look like? What do bathroom behaviors look like? What reward systems do we put in place for kids? The conscious discipline is actually training the adults to think differently about how they administer discipline.
Sorry, what's PBIS? I'm sorry, just so I...
Great question. Positive Behavior Intervention Supports.
Okay, thank you.
Another acronym from education.
Rita.
So I'm familiar with conscious parenting. We've used it in my nonprofit with parents. And so one of the things that we were working with Springfield Public Schools through the grant to train our parents in the early childhood program. So that's how I think I remember that.
Yes.
But I would like to see, as you guys are still in the planning phase, as you expand the conscious discipline in the schools, that perhaps with one of our organizations who's working with families, that we also work with the families, because it really works better when you have consensus of language and practice between the home and the school. And I believe one of the reasons that we did, if my memory serves, started with the early childhood program is because that program does focus on working with the parents also. And so I think as we move forward, if we're going to expand conscious discipline, that we also think about partnering with our organizations that are going to work with the whole family, so that we also have, and I know conscious parenting, they do workshops for parents called Parent Cafe.
Okay. That's good. That's great feedback. Great feedback.
I don't have a question per se, but just an observation that I mentioned something about this the last time when we talked about this. I mean, when Springfield works well, it works like this.
Yes.
I mean, Springfield is a wonderfully, surprisingly collaborative community, and each of us brings something to the table to serve kids that none of us can independently accomplish all that can be accomplished collectively. So this is actually, there are going to be a lot of moving parts, and the MOUs are going to be important and all of that, but this is actually a bit of good news, it seems to me, in a time when we don't get all that much good news. So many thanks to all the partners and to you. So I think this is impressive.
Brett, I have one more comment. Did I interrupt?
No, you go.
So, I am excited to hear about the Burl Day Treatment Program. However, I, like you, and probably most of the board members, would like to see additional details about that as you guys flesh it out. With the budget line item of $200,000 plus, I don't know, this sounds much bigger than $200,000.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, so, great point. And again, we need to, as we start to develop these MOUs, we're going to have to engage with the learning side of Dr. Anderson and his team to really think about, what is this going to look like? The nice thing about it is Burl has already done this. They have a model. And so
That was my other question, is do we have any model that we can base it on?
Burl has the one in Arkansas, because that's the idea, that's where this idea,
Okay.
the seed was planted, and hey, we could probably put this in a school and it would look very similar. But with putting it in a school comes other complexities that we're going to have to deal with, like making sure that we're going to have a teacher in there because we're going to collect ADA on them, we're going to collect attendance, and it just can't be Burl staff. So working through those logistics, again, how kids are referred to the program, because there's a big family component. What family commitments do we ask of people that choose to enroll their kid in the program? Because we've got to make sure that everybody participates, meaning the kid and the family. So, but we're excited about it.
It wasn't explicitly stated in your presentation, but I'd like to ask whether or not there is going to be any explicit kind of work with our homeless student population, because I know that is a growing population, particularly post-COVID. So I don't know where that population fits into this whole piece, but I'm hoping that some of these funds and some of these resources are going to be directed to that population. The other population that I'm hoping that this piece addresses are the children who have IEPs, because that's another population who COVID impacted in a different kind of way than some of our traditional students. So while it wasn't explicit in here, I'm hoping that there's some points in here that those populations will also get.
For sure. And the nice thing about this is working with the McKinney-Vento eligible kiddos and then special services kiddos. They fall under my jurisdiction now, so I will be entrenched in this work, and you are exactly right. Those populations of kids you would think would benefit greatly from a program like that.
Yes, absolutely.
So in response to your question or your comment, and I was actually going to do it on administrative updates, but I'll do it now, is we have a survey that is going out. It actually went out to principals earlier today, went out to staff, parents, community leaders, and also will be on our district website as it relates to ESSER. And it actually will ask different questions about, do you think we should spend more time here, homeless students, students with disabilities? And so based on your question, is this enough? One of the posters I have to discuss with you all later is there will be additional recommendations coming back to continue to expand. This is just the beginning, and the team has done an outstanding job of listening and addressing the concerns. But as it relates to the treatment program, I have some experience in intensive support teams. That's what we called them, and we actually had them placed out at our campuses. So there's a lot of work, but we encourage everyone to fill out that survey, because we will utilize that survey to make decisions on the next level of ESSER dollar spending and bring that information back to the board.
Thank you.
Great. I just have a comment to make, which is, as a board member, when we receive these presentations, I'm always thinking, does it align to the strategic plan? Are we being good stewards of the dollars we've already allocated? Are we partnering with our community partners? And thank you all for coming. When I think about Cox Health, Ronald McDonald House, Care to Learn, Community Partnership of the Ozarks, and Burl Health, I have no pause given. No pause. I've been working with these institutions for almost 30 years in this community. Besides Care to Learn, hasn't been around for 30 years. But they are experts who continue to support our kids. And when we received these funds, the goal, if I understand correctly, was to find the partners that we are already working with to better and to enhance the supportment to our kids during the season, but also when the money is no longer there, that it has improved what we can learn from partnering together and perhaps enhance those supports moving forward. So that's something that I am looking at, and I just want to commend you all for looking at this to be something that continues to grow.
Excited.
Any other comments? And before I read the recommended action. All right, thank you, Brett, and thank you, Jean, and thank you, community partners, for being here.
Thank you.
The recommended action? The recommended action is that the board authorizes the execution of memorandums of understanding for utilization of stimulus funds to support health and counseling services for students as presented. Would somebody, Denise would like to make the motion, Sharita would like to second the motion. Any discussion?
They're excited.
All right, seeing none, we are ready to vote. Motion passes. Thank you all. Our next agenda item is custodian of records, and the recommended action is that the board appoint the board secretary, Tammy Harrington, as the custodial of records for the district pertinent to BOE policy BDDL. Would somebody be willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Charles will make the motion.
I will second.
Denise will second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, we are ready to vote. Motion passes. Our next agenda item is unfinished business, and there are no items under that agenda item for tonight. That brings us to our change orders and agreements, and that brings Travis Shaw. Good evening, Travis.
Good evening. I have for you this evening a small but mighty list of change orders and agreements, primarily due to the furniture, the classroom furniture for Jarrett Middle School. And also along this list, you'll see some FF&E for Boyd and Hillcrest, as well as Williams. I'm excited, and I was sharing this with Dr. Lathan earlier, that Monday next week, we get our first shipment of furniture going into Boyd Elementary, and so we are getting very close to that project being finished. So exciting news. That has nothing to do with this list. I know Sharita likes updates.
I do.
So I'll give her one right there.
That's right. That's right.
And so
I drove by too, so.
it's amazing. Yeah, get a few dry days, we'll get the asphalt poured. So. But you can see the list in front of you. The total of this list is $1,182,513.14 for your consideration this evening.
Okay, all right. I know we've all had the opportunity to reach out to Travis individually to get any questions answered regarding this. So are there any questions at this time before I read the recommended action? All right, the recommended action is that the board approve the change orders and agreements as presented. Would somebody be willing to make that motion? Sharita will make the motion. Is there a second? Charles will make the second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we are ready to vote. Motion passes. Thank you, Travis, for the update. That brings us to our next agenda item, which is public comments to address non-agenda items, and I'll read our board public comment statement. The Board of Education will allow comments on topics not related to the printed agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the board secretary. It is inappropriate to address individual students or individual staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the school or in the district office. If you have materials that you would like to share, please provide them to the board secretary prior to speaking, and she will distribute them to board members. Tonight we have 5 speakers on non-agenda items. Which were okay.
Thank you.
Okay. That handout is for our first speaker, who is Claire Lawrence, who is speaking to us on non-agenda comic topic, mask mandates. Good evening, Claire.
Hi, nice to meet you all. My name is Claire Lawrence, and I'm here today to talk about the absurd mask mandate that has been decided upon yet again by the school board and health department officials. To say that I'm concerned about mandatory masks for our children and health decisions made for them by someone other than that child's parents is an understatement. Making masks mandatory for anyone is a total overreach of power and should not be allowed, especially given the incredible 99.99% survival rate of the school-aged children from COVID-19. If SPS is genuinely concerned about the safety of our children, why have we heard nothing about the crucial role zinc and vitamin D play in lessening and even preventing symptoms? Restricting detoxification pathways via masking can and do bring about respiratory illness. Vitamin D and zinc do not. What happened to children getting these illnesses and letting their bodies do what they are made to do, build immunity after getting sick? Some of you may have seen the article where parents in Gainesville, Florida, who were concerned about the potential harms from masks, submitted 6 face masks to a lab for analysis. These masks were washed before worn and were worn for 5 to 8 hours in a school setting by children ranging in age from 6 to 11 years. 5 out of these masks were contaminated with bacteria, parasites, and fungi, including 3 with dangerous pathogenic and pneumonia-causing bacteria. The analysis detected the following 11 alarming dangerous pathogens on the masks: pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis, sepsis, keratitis, and encephalitis, and antibiotic-resistant bacterium which causes bloodstream infections and UTIs, E. coli, Lyme disease, diphtheria, Legionnaire's disease, and 2 different types of staph infection. Less dangerous pathogens were also identified. Masks provide a warm, moist environment for bacteria to grow, so when put on children, they are a recipe for disaster. This virus is incredibly tiny, 0.06 to 0.125 microns, which means that no mask is going to stop the particles from getting through to you or stop you from giving them to others. Masks literally do nothing to protect you or anyone else from this virus. All they're doing is giving people a false sense of security and harming them in the meantime. They are detrimental to the central nervous system because of lack of oxygen to the body, which causes headaches, dizziness, drowsiness, respiratory impairment, exhaustion, and increased heart rate and blood pressure. By all means, people can wear masks or not wear masks, but there is no factual evidence showing that these masks make a difference. They're doing more harm than good, and no one should be forced to wear them. These decisions especially should not be made by our school system. This is America. We are free to make our own health decisions, and it's unconstitutional otherwise. Masks are traumatizing to our children. Not being able to see facial expressions and emotions is very isolating, and they miss a very big part of their human existence. This is not and never has been about our health or our children's health. It's about politics and fear, and no decision SPS makes is going to affect the outcome of COVID. If you're scared, stay home and wear your mask. Wear 3 of them for all I care, but do not tell me what I need to do for myself or my child. Let our children live their lives and have their childhood back. This is insanity, and I will not stand for it. I'm absolutely outraged, and I will not stop until something is done about this.
Thank you, Claire.
We have our freedom of speech.
Our next public speaker is Dr. John Vaughn on the update re-comment on CRT. Good evening,
First of
Dr.
all, I
Vaughn.
want to commend Health Services. I thought they did a great job. Their PowerPoints have been the best yet. It is really, really good. That's an example for what you've already done. 2 things have happened since I spoke last meeting. So that's why I didn't plan to speak tonight, but 2 things have happened. At the end of the last meeting, the statement was made that there is no such thing as critical race theory. Okay. Now that being said, that's a matter of record. Second thing is, since that time, on July 4th weekend, the NEA met for a national meeting, and out of that meeting came a document called New Business Item Number 39. And I'm assuming that you've already seen it. If you haven't, you need to look it up. But it was very unapologetic. It says, we oppose attempts to ban critical race theory and the 1619 project. So they are very open about it. In fact, they have designated tens of thousands of dollars to identify any group that opposes CRT, and they plan to address those groups. So I just wanted to just share those 2 things, that the comment was made, needs to be understood, and then second of all about the business item 39. And again, I want to commend Health Services. They did a great job.
Thank you, Dr. Vaughn. Thank you. Our next our next public speaker is Ashley Merriweather. Did I say that correctly? Okay. And that's okay. You've got good handwriting. So her non-agenda topic is on mask choice. You may start, yes.
Perfect. Well, I want to tell you guys thank you so much for, this is my first time. I actually teach public speaking for a living, but I feel like I'm about to fall.
It's a theme tonight, right?
So it's good to know I'm not the only nervous one. My friend earlier couldn't say it any better than what anyone could, talking about the mask mandate, and everything that she even spoke on is 100% how I feel. I actually pulled my child out of summer school because of the mask mandate. And there's just so many different things that go into how I feel about it, that it sometimes makes it hard to even get that information out. So I please, just like in her speech, said, you know, if people want to wear a mask, we're all for it. Whatever. I think it's all about choice, and I think that that's something we need to make sure that we're taking into heart. I know there's a lot of, I'm just a mom, okay, that's what I am, and my hairstylist too, which you have beautiful hair, by the way. We just want to be able to choose for our children. I'm actually looking into private school if we can't get anything ever changed. And so if you guys could just take the time to really do your research on everything when it comes to the mask. It's so terrible for like our children, like the health services, like they were speaking on such great stuff. But talk about the mental health issue. Well, we can't even see people's faces. And it gets me crazy to the point where I could start even crying. So I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for allowing just a mom to get up here and speak. Because we truly, we all want the best for the kids, right? That's what we're here for. And I appreciate everything that you guys do. And there's multiple other things I want to speak on when it comes to the different stuff that's going to be coming into the schools. But still, yet this is probably the one that I feel the strongest about, because I feel like if I can't even see the face of an individual and I can't even get that change and I can't choose that for myself, myself and my children, then what are the things away from us? And so I know some people think it's kind of weird to think of it being on a freedom level, but honestly it is, because there's not a whole lot of scientific information. Even some of the CDC people have said that it's not even, something that it's like was said, a false sense of security. So thank you guys so much. I know I'm running out of time, and it was probably kind of all over the place, but I'm super passionate about it. I just want to tell you guys I do appreciate it a whole lot, and to please give it a lot of thought before mandating this next year.
Ashley, thank you. We always enjoy hearing from parents, so thank you. Our next public speaker is Gerald Kine, okay. And he is here to speak on CRT.
Okay, I was here a while back and spoke. You may or may not remember me, but I tried to, at that time, encourage interaction, and I think that is possible, or is it? Is it possible to maybe ask a question?
I just simply ask clarifying questions.
Okay, but is it possible for me to ask a question and to get maybe a response?
No, not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, well, I'll try to put it another way then. The idea of a school board or a teacher that would make racist statements to their class, in the sense that they would say that white people need to be ashamed of their color, I think would be an extreme position. Any teacher that would instruct a pupil or bring out the idea that white people need to be ashamed of their color, this would be a blatant racist statement. And when you think about it, it aligns your ideology with what has happened in the past. And that is the dictatorship of Hitler. Because that's exactly what he did. He singled out a class of people and he made them feel ashamed of who they were. For no other reason but for the fact of who they were. So I see that alignment here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's there. That you are aligning yourself with an ideology when you try to single out a group of people just for the fact of their appearance and say that that class of people should be ashamed and that they're a problem in society, that's a racist statement. And that is in alignment with history in a bad way. So if it was turned around the other way, yeah, oh man. If we decided that the black people, because of the color of their skin, you need to be ashamed. You need to be ashamed of the color of your skin, or because of the color of your skin. That'd be a travesty. It'd be a blatant discrimination, racist to the hilt. But yet, it's turned around the other way, and it seems to be accepted, which is Class A, yes.
Thank you, Gerald. Our next public speaker is Monica Russell, who is speaking on CRT and mask mandate in elementary schools. Good evening, Monica.
Good evening. It's my first time speaking. I'm another one of those that's a little nervous, so bear with me. I am a parent of SBS kids. As a concerned parent, I'm here because my children are mixed. My children are white and Hispanic. My children have been listening to things where they feel that, Mom, why are people telling me that I have to be sorry for being my color? Because there's no need for that. The school's job is to teach math, science, English to my kids, not race. That's my job as a parent, not the school's job. I understand that it comes into the schools, and it might make a difference with the students, how they behave, which I'm very proud of the health, the mental health issue, because it causes mental health issues on the children. Telling one child that they're better than the other, or telling one child that they're being oppressed because the other one is a different color, what do you think is going to cost the children? What kind of mental health is that going to cost to the kids? Especially when we're starting in kindergarten. I have a 5-year-old that's going to start kindergarten that is already wondering, Mom, why is she different color than I am? My children, because they're Hispanic, they're not white, they're white, and I'm Puerto Rican. So it's not a matter of the skin color. I'm so frustrated because all you hear from everything is white people are bad and everybody else is okay except for the white community. Sorry, but my children are white. My children are taught at home to be good to everybody, whether they're white, whether they're yellow, whether they're whatever color. Another issue I have is the mask mandate. I'm very concerned because my children suffer from respiratory issues because of the mask mandate. This last year, my 5-year-old was in school and he became kind of like a robot. It became so ingrained in him that the moment he took his mask, he felt like something was missing. I'm like, no, baby, you don't have to wear a mask everywhere you go because it's not necessary. It's causing health issues, and my children are usually healthy kids. Since the mask mandate, they've been in the doctor more often than not. And I don't agree with that. I don't think it's necessary for elementary children to be wearing masks. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Our next agenda item is administrative reports. And I believe Dr. Lathan will give us some reports or
I'm on first also. I guess I'll be nervous with everyone else.
That's right. Or members of her team.
So just a thank you to the Board of Education for the opportunity to serve as the new superintendent of this outstanding district. I want to thank the community, members of the administrative team, for your warm welcome. I have enjoyed being in the community over the past month, being out in the community. Have a lot of work to do. Our team has a lot of work to do, and we are ready for the challenge. I ask for everyone's grace as we go through and review documents, review information. I'll be sharing more as it relates to my full entry plan in several months, not only with the board, but also with the public. And so just excited. And I'm nervous because the school starts in about a month. I think it's 40 days. We have a lot of work to do in 40 days, but it's going to be a great 2021-22 school year. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to serve and to lead.
Okay, great. Our next agenda item is any legislative updates?
No updates.
No updates at this time, okay. That leads us to our next agenda item, which is any board comments. Are there any announcements at this time?
Yeah, having just
Okay.
returned from the MSBA Board of Directors meeting in Columbia.
Yes.
A couple of things to sort of put in your mental Rolodex. First, the annual meeting will be moving away from Pantera/Margaritaville hotel that will hold all of us without
With running
losing
water? With
Yeah,
running
without losing
water, hopefully.
It will be in Kansas City for the first time, the Kansas City Convention Center, November 4 through 7. And interestingly, this year, on that Saturday the 6th, the logistics are still being worked out, there will likely be a free professional development opportunity for teachers, a lot of teachers, and I believe Scholastic is going to fund that. And it's possible that, and I did not know this, apparently there's a Clifford the Big Red Dog movie coming out. It is possible, not a given, but possible that there may be a free showing for MSBA of Clifford the Big Red Dog. And I would encourage you to attend. I think it's going to be a very lively, very productive meeting once we actually get back to having meetings in person. I would also encourage you to review what you probably received in your email inbox today, the MSBA Critical Issue Alert, because it speaks to something that's come up in several contexts today, which is the alleged infiltration of our schools by critical race theory. There will certainly be a referendum of sorts in April. Let's not fool ourselves about that. There absolutely will. But we cannot kick this can down the road until April and just resolve it then. And I think what MSBA has to say is really very useful. And it doesn't come with incendiary language, none of that. There are no redactions, there are no accusations of dishonesty, anything like that. It is really quite straightforward, it seems to me, and accurate. And this is not necessarily from the MSBA perspective, but it's mine. I do think it is crucial. I mean, the claim was made earlier that we have somehow suggested that CRT does not exist. It does, in fact, exist. It exists in law schools. Occasionally, it shows up at the in graduate schools. Occasionally, it shows up at undergraduate level. It is not a curriculum in K-12. It has never been and should never be. So in some ways, I hope that we will not allow all of this discussion of CRT to get us to blink when it comes to our stated explicit commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They are not the same thing, but unfortunately, they have become collapsed in this discussion, and I think we have to take a pretty strong stand in regard to that, not in support of CRT. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. My sense is that what we're doing in roundabout and interesting kinds of ways is how best to talk about our shared and honorable but also imperfect history in this country, and that there are, in many cases, systemic inequities built into that. That doesn't make this a bad country. It does not. I'm absolutely proud to be here. And our diversity and equity commitments don't in any way ask students who kind of look like me to feel bad about looking like me. Right? That's simply not the case. We need to teach our history in a way that honors our very best democratic ideals and our aspirations as a nation, while still acknowledging that our commitment to creating a more perfect union for everybody remains a work in progress. And it does. And that strikes me as something that we ought to be supportive of. And frankly, our diversity work holds us accountable to those democratic ideals. And it holds us accountable to each other. we have to focus on that rather than sort of the controversy that's swirling around us. We have to focus on the message, not on the noise around it.
Charles, are you finished with your comments? We are in the middle of a business meeting. Charles, are you finished with your?
Not on that topic, yes, but these are challenging times. It's likely the lobbying staff anticipates that the governor will sign House Bill 349 tomorrow. I suspect it was caught up in it's a bit of a trade-off in some other, political discussions, including the FRA renewal, et cetera. But for whatever reason, I think the key is that we have to, as a board and as a district, we have to keep our eye on the prize of what is really important for our kids. Because if we allow ourselves to get knocked off stride, this is a political moment where we have to come together and we have to speak with one voice on behalf of the district and what we're doing.
First of all, thank you for sharing, for representing us on the MSBA board and sharing those comments on the conference and those type of things. I did see the email that came from MSBA regarding the critical alert. I haven't had a chance to read through it all, but I see them recognizing the topic and the issue and trying to help public school districts decipher and how to navigate what is and what isn't. And so I look forward to reading more about what they are providing as well.
It will give us a shared language, not just us, right? But our community.
That's right. That's
we have a language to talk about what's actually going on in schools and what isn't actually happening.
Yep. So I appreciate that. Any other comments before we move on to upcoming meetings? I have a list here to read to you all. Let's see. We have our State of the State, the Chamber of Commerce State of the State, JQH Arena, Tuesday, July 27th at 11 a.m. And if you are planning to attend that, letting Tammy know. That is not a requirement of our board to attend, but we oftentimes have representation. Then we have on Friday, July 30th, the 2021 Explorer graduation ceremony at Parkview High School at 6 p.m. August 3rd, on a Tuesday, we have Learn, Lead, Succeed Leadership Kickoff at Kickapoo High School. We have Good Morning Springfield, which is the state of the schools. It's an annual event, and SPS gives, Dr. Lathan will give a briefing on the state of our school district, and that will be hosted at Delaware Elementary School on Thursday, August the 5th. Our next board meeting is a combined meeting, Tuesday, August 17th. And then our first day of school, which Dr. Lathan mentioned, it's hard to believe, is Monday, August 23rd. It'll be here before you know it. I'm thinking of all the things I thought I was going to get done this summer and not quite getting those things checked off the list. So hopefully you've got those on your calendar. We do need to, I guess our next agenda item is if there's any plus deltas that you want to leave for the meeting, please put those on a Post-it note and hand those to Tammy as you are walking out the door. Our next agenda item is executive session, and we do need to go into executive session tonight, and the recommended action is that the board meet in executive session following this meeting to discuss legal and personnel matters as provided in section 610.21, subsections 1, 3, and 13 of the revised statute of Missouri. Would somebody be willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Charles will make the motion. Second it. Miriam will second it. Any discussion? Seeing none, we are ready to vote. The motion passes. Thank you for joining us tonight in our regular scheduled meeting.